We've got trade rumors, we've got injury reports, we've got all sorts of cool stuff on today's edition of Locked On NHL Western Conference Wednesday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Is it working?
No, I just see the screen that says Locked On NHL.
Oh
Are
my
we
God.
there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just proceed apace
Oh
and
boy.
pretend that everything looks okay on my end. I'm just going to use my imagination. You're listening to Locked On NHL. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Sarah Avampato, one half of your regular Wednesday crew here, also host of Locked On Kings. I'm joined, allegedly, I can't see her, by Jess Belmosto, host of Locked On Flames. And as usual, there we go, my partner in crime here
There we
on
go.
Western Conference Wednesday. It's not a complete day if you don't have some sort of bizarre technical difficulty that you don't know why it happened or how. But we're here. We're here. We're ready to talk about hockey, and we've actually got some news for you today. Today we're going to look at the announcement from the Chicago Blackhawks about their official hiring of their new GM. We're going to look at some rumors out of Nashville, or some lack of rumors, I guess you could say. And of course, Vegas. When will they have to deal with the problems they have created for themselves? We'll look at all that today on the show. But we're going to start by turning to Chicago with their announcement of hiring their new general manager, who is basically the kid who had been their interim general manager. Kyle Davidson has officially announced as the Blackhawks GM. And would you like to take a guess, Jess, at how old he is?
So I only know because I have the article pulled up, but he's a baby. He's 33. So we're now bringing in the next generation of old white men.
Right, it's like their final form. Like, is this like a Pokemon? Like that's what they finally evolve into. Like, their final form is old white man who's had the same job for like 30 years. But yeah, Kyle Davidson, 33 years old. He has been with the Blackhawks since summer of 2010. He started out as a hockey operations intern. So
At
you too,
23? No, 21.
yeah. Oh, welcome to your first job out of college, kid, I guess.
Who's your dad?
Right, Mr. Davidson. Right, it's I mean, congrats to him, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, look at that hustle, but way to, climb up the ranks and stuff. But
Yeah, that is impressive.
yeah, I mean, we can make fun of it as much as we want, but at the end of the day, I sure haven't worked my way up to general manager of anything since I graduated for college. But yeah, started as an intern, has worked a whole bunch of different roles over his 12 seasons with the team. In 2018, he was named assistant to the general manager. And then last offseason, he was promoted to assistant general manager of hockey administration. And then after all of the Stan Bowman being gently allowed to step down stuff, was named interim GM for the Blackhawks. So their big, long search where they interviewed all sorts of people all came down to hiring the guy who already had the job.
Now, I mean, no disrespect to this fine, young, hardworking gentleman. I'm sure, good for you. Obviously, like, you don't just get well, actually, you do kind of just get handed these jobs. But, at that young age, you have to have had proved yourself, and you must be doing something right. But you're telling me that there was no one more qualified?
Mm-hmm.
And is it because, I could see like internal hires and promotions are great, but is it because he's watched what's gone on and he can be complacent? Or, does he have some brilliant ideas that will help this rebuild?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, if the Blackhawks organization, ownership on down, really wanted to remake their organization, this was the time to do it. I
Right.
know they had interviewed. I know they interviewed a woman who works for the Raptors, who had already kind of said, "Yeah, this wasn't like the opportunity for me," but they at least seemed sincere in their interest in talking to her. They interviewed a guy who works for the Cubs, so they did look at people outside of hockey, in addition to looking at Peter Chiarelli, which, honestly, if I had to pick between this kid, Kyle Davidson, and Peter
Yeah.
Chiarelli, well,
We're
they've made the
going.
right choice, right?
Yeah.
Good job. Um, but yeah, it's like, if they wanted to really say, like, you know what, we are literally blowing things up and starting over again. Um, it would have been a really good time to bring in someone from outside of hockey and give them a shot. But I will say, for Kyle Davidson, he at least is saying the right things in a seemingly sincere way. Um, he does seem very cognizant of the fact that the Blackhawks have a lot of work to do on and off the ice, of, rebuilding not just the product on the ice that people go to see, but making people care about the team again and making people trust in them again. Um, he at least is talking a good talk. We'll see what that means, in terms of what he actually gets done, especially knowing, as we've talked about before on here, the whole like Rocky Wirtz outburst thing. Like, how much power does this kid really have if that's his boss?
Exactly. And, because he's young and relatively new to
Mhm.
his position, is he going to be someone who risks stepping on
Mhm.
people's toes and um, has the ability to make this true culture change? And I'm rooting for him. I don't want this, I don't want to see him fail. I think it's important that um, for the players and just to rebuild who they are as a
Mhm.
team, find that identity. And it looks like a majority of the uh dirt is out of the house. Unfortunately, Rocky Wars is still there, but there's not much
Yeah.
you can do about that. Not like you can just like fire your owner.
Right.
Um, but I don't know. I don't want to seem overly optimistic because I mean, Chicago is in a really weird spot when it comes to rebuilding and retooling, but I don't know, I think it's important to have, like, a young mind in there who
Mhm.
obviously knows what it takes to get, hard work done, and I think that it'll be an interesting climb.
Yeah. Yeah, I do like the fact that he, I mean, he still comes from within the organization. He still comes from hockey, but he also, like, it's not, he's not a former player. He's not, I spent 20 years hitting people on the ice, and so that's the way I
Right.
think about the game. It seems like he does have, a more modern idea of what hockey is, and he already, his first day on the job basically has already said this is a rebuild, which I feel like are not words that Stan Bowman ever specifically said with that amount of, like, he's like, no, we have to rebuild this team. We basically
Mm,
have to tear it
right.
down and start over, which, they've needed to do for years, but Stan
Yeah.
Bowman wouldn't do it. So now someone will, and we'll see, with the deadline coming up, we'll actually get to see what he's made of in terms of
Yeah.
trades and everything.
I think, Stan Bowman only, like, recognized the rebuild when that letter to, like, season ticket holders went out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was like, "Hold your horses, like, things are gonna get kinda ugly, and we're gonna stink, but I promise we're working on it." Things got ugly, but not the way that you were kind of just expecting them to.
Right. Yeah. Different.
Yeah, different kind of
Yeah.
dirty and bad, but, I think it would have been so interesting for them to bring in someone from baseball
Mhm.
or basketball. I think really
Mhm.
any other sport, um because you kinda it doesn't matter, like, what sport you come from. It's a matter of you being able to make smart decisions
Right.
and
Right.
timely decisions, but I don't know. I know that you go to a lot of Chicago games. Do you truly think anyone on this roster is untouchable if we're going full-blown rebuild?
I mean, the only one who should be, of the guys who are currently playing is Alex DeBrincat. Like, he's
Okay.
the only guy who I would say is the kind of player you could build around, not just skill-wise, but also personality-wise. He has a lot of character. He is a person that, like, fans have, like, took to
He's
immediately.
fun. I
You know,
follow
he's
him on
yeah.
Instagram.
Yeah, he's a fun guy. He's got good dogs. Like, I feel like he of all the players who spoke kind of in the aftermath of all the Cal Beach stuff and everything, he was kind of one of the first ones who came out and was like, yeah, Stan Bowman and those guys needed to go. Like, he actually said the hard things that, Jonathan
That no
Taves was
that
like
your
wishy-washy
captain
about.
wasn't even saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like for me, he would be kind of the only guy I'd say, like, you can't have, like, or if you want him, you have to give me something crazy for him.
Right.
Even in terms of prospects, Lucas Reichel's a really good one, probably their best prospects in terms of forwards. But even him, if someone's going to blow you away with a package, like, you have to listen. But they should, yeah, it is, and it's respectful to guys like Taves and Kane who probably don't want to. I mean, they're going to say all the right things about, like, I want to stay here, whatever. But they know, like, the clock is ticking on them and
Right.
their careers. So, much like they very kindly sent Duncan Keith to Edmonton, to be closer to his son, but whatever, like, you sort of owe it to some of those veteran
Right.
players to at least say, like, okay, here's our plan. And Davidson has said, he's like, yeah, I'm going to keep them in the loop as to, like, what our plans are. It's
Right.
it's only fair to say, here's our plan. Do you want to stay? Do you want to commit again? Like, they're up for new contracts soon. Like,
Right.
is this
Like,
what you want, or do you want to go?
do you wanna
And
finish your career out here, or do you wanna try to go win somewhere else? Like, and I
right,
think that that's fair, even though I have, like, my own personal beef with the both of
right,
them.
right.
Uh,
But yeah,
like,
all that aside,
yeah, I think that's, the most respectful thing to do, and I think it's important, uh, for a general manager and really anyone who is making these decisions
yeah.
to have that open communication. And, you know, yesterday the Oilers placed someone on waivers and their mom
Hmm.
replied and was like, "Oh, this is a really great way for the both of us to find out."
Yeah.
And I
Oops.
don't yeah, like this that that's terrible. But I hope that every organization kind of takes a proactive approach. And
Hmm.
especially, Kyle Davidson has to do the hard work of regaining the public's trust.
Yeah.
And that's not a job for the weak.
Mm-mm.
So
Mm-mm.
good luck to him.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I mean, I wish him the best. Like, I hope that he really can enact change and wants to make a difference. And that, for the sake of all the people who have given that team their money, that the team on ice gets a lot better, because let me tell you, oh buddy,
Yeah.
I get to go see them lose to the Oilers later this week. So that's going to be great.
That's so sad. Why would you do that to
It
yourself?
was part of my ticket package.
Oh, well, at least you get to see Connor McDavid.
Right.
Like,
I get to see
that's like
Connor
the one
McDavid,
bright
like,
side.
yeah, Leon Draisaitl, like, they'll do cool stuff. Like, I just go to the games because if I want to see NHL hockey, like, that's
Right.
what I
Where
gotta
else are you gonna
do.
go?
Yeah.
Is it
So
gonna be Duncan Keith's homecoming?
I don't know. He's been out with, like, a concussion. So I don't know if
Oh,
I
that's
think I
right.
saw that he, like, is practicing. So I don't know. If it is, that'll I also think it's like Nicholas Hjalmarsson, like, memory night or something. So it'll be a lot of I don't know, feelings for the 17 people that are there. No, it's better than that. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. There'll be a lot of Oilers fans though.
Oh, of course.
Well, we have more GM shenanigans or lack thereof to talk about right after this. But first, I think you've got some snacks to tell us about.
I do. We do talk about snacks a lot on this show, and I have a feeling that Kyle Davidson will be eating plenty of snacks at his desk, probably playing around with, the armchair GM feature on Cap Friendly and before making those phone calls. But you can get some snacks at built.com. Everyone these days is, just we're hungry. We need something. We need to be fed. Uh, Have you tried the puffs, Sarah?
I have, and they are delicious.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, puffs are the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy, and they're not just a protein bar. They are a treat that are covered in 100% real chocolate. And they have some really delicious flavors, including coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, and a yummy cinnamon churro, which sounds delicious. And all Built bars are covered in 100% chocolate, and those are 100% real chocolate. So you don't have to worry about that fake sugar and all those bad things that can give people really bad headaches. Um, Built bars and puffs are low calorie, high protein, and you can replace your candy bar or your favorite sweet snacks with these. These are better for you. And if you're watching your calories and macros, then Built Bar is the snack for you. So head on over to built.com today and use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off of your order.
All right. That sounds like a great thing to do, to go get some snacks. When you're done with your snacks, you should check out some other podcasts that we have here on Locked On NHL, Locked On Podcast Network. Of course, you should be making this show, Locked On NHL, your first listen of the day, available wherever you get your podcasts. But for your next listen, you should be checking out the Locked On Now podcast. It features nightly recaps of every NHL game. You can get analysis from all of our local experts. So you don't get to just hear from us, you get to hear from hosts all across the Locked On NHL squad, all about their teams, the ups, the downs, the tragedy, the hilarious losses. Toronto, looking at you. You can find all of that on Locked On Now. It is, of course, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. One thing you may or may not hear about on Locked On Now is the Nashville Predators and Filip Forsberg. There was a rumor that went around recently saying that the Predators may have been looking to shop him. He's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, doesn't have a new deal in place. The Predators GM has come out and said, no, I'm not trying to trade Filip Forsberg. We're trying to sign Filip Forsberg. Both sides wanted to get done, whatever. As of today, he says, I can tell you clearly we are trying to sign Filip Forsberg. Well, how about that?
It's almost like some reverse psychology. And I feel so bad I'm approaching this entire episode with like massive speculation, but I don't know. I'm just like, I do not trust any of these teams, especially when it comes to their UFAs. Um, you know, obviously, if both sides want to get it done, they'll get it done. But at the same time, like, why wouldn't you try to see what's out there for him?
Mm-hmm.
Especially while you can. And I just, I love Filip Forsberg. I think he was one of the first predators I ever remember watching as a hockey fan, or as like an adolescent hockey fan trying to get back into things. But like I think that he would be a fantastic asset to any team, especially one that's trying to have a serious run at the playoffs. And I don't know if Nashville's that team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Nashville knows if they're that team.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what's making this more interesting is that they've been in and out of a playoff spot. At some points, they've been at the top of the division or of the Central. Right now, they're holding down the first wild card spot in the West with 64 points. They're just 1 point behind Minnesota, who has that number 3 spot. So, trade deadline is coming up on March 21st. So they've got, 18, 19, 20 days kind of to figure out what they're doing with him, figure out what they think they can accomplish at the trade deadline, where they think this team is going. But Forsberg and the team have both said, yeah, I'd like to, Forsberg says he wants to come back. The team says he wants him back. But, so far nothing has happened. Like you haven't even heard like leaks about, contract negotiations or this or that. But he is, I mean, if if a trade does happen, like that's going to be the blockbuster this year. He leads the Predators with goals, 27 goals in 40 games. He has 45 points. That's third on the team. Any team would, whenever the first rumor came out, I was like, does Victor Arvidsson need a friend from his old team? Because I would take Filip Forsberg. But the
Yeah.
package to give up for him, I don't even know where you start with that. Like,
Yeah, and I don't know how low Nashville's willing to go with that
mhm,
price because they know teams want him.
yeah.
And like we both said, like this he would be the blockbuster trade. This would be
Mhm,
uh just uh, unbelievable, especially, if it turns out that neither side was really working towards anything. And I
mhm,
think as the deadline draws closer, we're going to get a better idea of what's happening because no one is showing their cards at this point. They all have their strong poker faces, and I don't know. And I don't know if anyone really has a package. Like, is Nashville
mhm,
gonna want him to stay in the Western Conference? Or are they gonna kind of, not to compare him to Jack Eichel, but in
mhm.
the same situation, are they gonna say, "Go east, my
Yeah.
sweet son"?
Yeah, I mean, if I were David Poyle and if I were the team behind the Predators, I would want him back back over in the East. I was just looking. There's an article on NBC Sports kind of talking about the Philip Forsberg and his whole situation, and they're kind of speculating on some teams that could work. And the most hilarious suggestion is sending him back to the Washington Capitals because he, of course, was originally drafted by the Capitals. They traded him in a really dumb trade that like everyone still makes fun of to this day, because the Capitals wanted help now. They didn't want a prospect they had to like deal with. And so it would be really, really funny to send him back to the Capitals. It's just sort of like how whenever, uh, rumors were started going around about the Kings possibly trading Jeff Carter before they did it.
Yep.
I was like, the best possible place to send him that would be really funny would be to send him back to the Philadelphia Flyers.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
which would have been hilarious. They did the second most hilarious thing though, which was to send them to the Penguins, the arch nemesis. That was
Mhm.
very funny. But, yeah, what do you give up for Filip Forsberg? How
Right.
like teams that are um, competitors that are in a position to win the cup don't have the salary cap space
No.
to necessarily take on a player like that. And it seems like it could be a situation sort of like where it was the year that Artemi Panarin didn't re-sign in Columbus, and everyone kind of knew he wasn't going to re-sign there. And
Yeah.
Columbus was like sort of hanging in there in the playoff picture,
Mhm.
sort of not. And they elected to keep him, knowing that he wasn't going to re-sign, and just let him walk at the end of the year. And I feel like that may be the most likely thing that the Predators do, which is okay, we can't come to a deal. We're going to keep trying to hammer something out. We want you for the playoffs. So we might just, you know, have to lose out.
Right.
But oh well, because
And
yeah,
at
what do you do?
Right. And, like, at that same time, are you in a position to retain that kind of salary
Hmm.
with the salary that you're taking on,
Yeah.
from that package? So you have to kind of, uh, again, these are number people things I am not. So,
Yeah. No.
um, and if you do want him to stick around, get the most out of it, like, crank those jersey sales, do
Yeah.
some sort of promotion, line your pockets.
Yeah.
Um
Enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, exactly, because, when a guy like that walks, I mean, the Preds have, a decent team still,
Yeah.
obviously, but, that's a guy that losing, that would hurt,
Yeah.
and then we don't need to pick the scab off the Pecorine wound this
Gosh. Yeah.
soon, so,
Yeah, yeah, I feel
ugh,
like Preds fans are still sad about that. They're still sad about, like, the team trading Victor Arvidsson over the
yep,
summer. I feel like anytime I talk to Preds fans doing or, to any on Kings, they're all like, "How's Victor Arvidsson doing? Is he having a nice day? We miss him." So a fan favorite, and Philip Forsberg would be huge, for them to move, but we'll see. I think he stays there, but
yeah.
dumber stuff has happened in hockey.
Yeah, I don't think that he's on the move, and
No.
I do think a deal would get done. I don't I just can't imagine him playing anywhere else
Right.
at this
Yeah.
point,
It'd be
but
weird.
yeah, that would just
Yeah. Well, we have one more thing to talk about today, which is seemingly the regular segment on the show, which is Vegas WTF. We're going to talk about that on the show coming up on Locked On NHL, part of your Locked On Podcast Network. So we've got Vegas, and every time we talk about them, we're like, how do math work? And the latest thing has been Robin Lehner was out on the injured reserve list for a little while. He is back now. He's practicing. He's ready to come back. They sent back their baby goalie back to the AHL. Everything looks okay for right now, sort of, in the cap. They have managed to, fit everyone under it so far. But there's also the added bonus of Alec Martinez has been out a significant amount of time this season, and he's been practicing lately. And he is on long-term injured reserve. He's not quite ready to come back yet, but he has been with the team. And that's usually your first step to getting ready to come back. He's on long-term injured reserve, so he's currently saving the Vegas Golden Knights a little over $5 million in cap space. So right now they've got about $4 million in cap space, a little over, but they might find themselves in a pickle if he is ready to come back anytime soon.
They will make sure he's not ready to come back.
I mean, they've been so good at playing like long-term injured reserve hot potato. I feel like the next most likely candidates, they have two other guys right now on regular injured reserve, so not saving them cap space. They have Matthias Janmark, who has a $2 million cap hit, and they have Nolan Patrick, who's at $1.2 million. I don't remember Janmark's situation off the top of my head, but Nolan Patrick got hit for like the 8,000th time.
Was that the Nathan McKinnon hit?
Yep.
He's still out?
Yeah, he's still out. I don't even think he's been practicing. I feel like a whole podcast topic is just like how bad I feel for poor Nolan Patrick.
Yeah, I think I might dedicate like a Friday episode to that.
Right? It's rough. Yeah. But so it's like, okay, let's say Alec Martinez comes back and they have to free up about $5.3 million in cap space. They've got 4.3 right now, so they've got to move about $1 million. If they think either of those guys are going to be out for a significantly long time, well, there's your answer, is you punt one of them over. I mean, there's probably more complex stuff to it than that. Again, I'm not the math person either. But the numbers seem to make sense. And it's just like, A, how do they keep getting away with this? B, what does it mean for them at the trade deadline? Because they're going to do something. They are. They're Vegas.
Right.
How do?
I'm just okay. So my immediate reaction is put Nolan Patrick on LTIR, especially if he's not practicing. Like, take that weight off of your shoulders. And I'm sure, I don't know. I would feel guilty if I was like, oh my God, I'm costing this team like $1.3 million while I'm sitting in my lavish home. But like, I don't see him coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know the situation off the top of my head, but based on his history, it seems very unlikely that it's going to be a quick bounce back.
Yeah.
So, you figure that out. That's a few $1 million or $1.5 million, whatever it is. And then you have to trade someone.
Yeah.
You have to. And I don't know. I'm so upset about Nolan Patrick. I lost my train of thought.
It is very I was hoping whenever he got traded to Vegas, as someone who, because he was part of that like three-way trade, and like Cody Glass went to Nashville, and I watched a lot of Cody Glass in the AHL because he played in Chicago. And I still like that kid can be an NHL player, and I don't really know, how he got so sort of stuck in the middle. He's still playing in the AHL right now, but I had kind of hoped for Nolan Patrick, like, okay, as much as like, I'm not a big Vegas fan, I was like, all right, like this could be a good chance for him to like fresh start. He gets away from the Philadelphia crowd that like, basically turned on him for no fault of his own. It's not his fault that he like has had multiple head injuries.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, like you get to go to a new fan base, you get a new opportunity. Vegas fans are like, as much as we kind of like roll our eyes, like they're pumped about everything.
Oh, yeah.
So, cool. And then here, like this is like probably the second time at least this season that he's been out with
Yeah.
injury, particularly head related stuff. And it's just a bummer. Like,
It's so and it's so upsetting as someone who sees athletes as more than just,
mhm,
a guy in hockey gear.
mhm,
You have to worry about that quality of life aspect and, back to the cap space stuff real quick. I think it's just kind of a revolving door for Vegas,
yeah,
and it's like, okay, one guy can get off and the next goes on. Like, I don't wanna say it's them getting lucky because obviously, it comes with the
right.
someone getting hurt, but they've been, very fortunate when it comes to the convenience factor of everyone's timely
Mhm,
injuries and what have you, but
yeah,
I just, I don't even know. I the only Vegas game I've really watched outside of the times they've played the Flames was Jack Eichel's return, and that's when, um, oh my gosh, Nolan Patrick went down, and I was
mhm.
like, "That's probably the end of his season," so
Yeah,
it's
that's not great. Yeah. Yeah, Vegas, like, I still think Vegas looks for a goalie, even though, like, Lehner's
Yeah,
back. I think Brossoit has been fine as their backup, but, their number 3 is a kid who's played, like, 2 NHL games.
yeah,
So, I think
Logan.
yeah, Logan Thompson? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, I only know that because I, like, looked at their page, like, 10 minutes ago, and I couldn't, but 10 minutes ago is a long time for my memory. But yeah, I expect them to look for like a number 3 kind of guy. With what money and what cap space, I don't know,
They'll
but
find it.
they'll find it. I feel like that's the moral of the story. Vegas, they'll find it.
That's just, like, their slogan
Yeah.
on all their, like, merch. That's their branding. They'll
I
find
love
it.
it. Like,
Yeah.
Vegas, money, what's that?
Honestly. Oh, man, but,
It's
you just
magical.
I'm still curious to see if any phone calls have been made to Chicago, especially with this new general manager.
Mhm. Yeah.
I wonder, you know
Yeah.
I mean, I know
Marc-Andre
that it
Fleury on the move.
yeah, and I know that they, like, kinda dispelled the rumors, at
Mhm.
least Vegas did, but I think also they have to save face
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that situation.
Yeah, I personally, I on Tuesday I talked with Mary Clark. I was on the cross check show that we do, which you should be listening to if you're a hockey fan. Obviously, listening to this podcast, you should be listening to the cross check from Mary Clark and Andrew Berkshire. I jumped on as a guest host with Mary on Tuesday, and we were talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I didn't say it in the show because I didn't want to derail everything we were talking about. But I was like, because we were talking about like, Jack Campbell really needs help. Like Peter Mrazek isn't it. He's hurt all the time. Like Jack Campbell is like playing more games than he's ever played in his career. Like they need a solid other goaltender. And I was like, Marc-Andre Fleury might be available.
Ooh.
Like I would hate it because I don't want Marc-Andre Fleury to be a Toronto Maple Leaf, but it
Yeah,
would make a lot of sense.
it would.
I don't know what their money situation is, but
I don't
if
think
they
they have money.
no, but if they follow in Vegas's footsteps, money, what's it matter?
Exactly. Wow, I never thought of that, and now the thought of him in a Toronto sweater is making me a
Weird.
little nauseous.
Don't like it.
I
Don't like
don't
it. But
know.
I think that's a great place to end as we both sit uncomfortably with
Yeah.
the image in our brains of Marc-Andre
Ooh.
Fleury in a Toronto Maple Leaf sweater. We'll just meditate on that one for a while. As you all go on about your day, thank you so much for listening to Locked On NHL, for making us your first listen of the day every day. Of course, there is more content here all week long on Locked On NHL, looking at all the biggest stories across the league. So make sure you come back tomorrow for more from our great team of hosts here on Locked On NHL. Now that you're done here, go make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Hockey with hosts Steele Roden and Flip Livingstone. You can become the expert of your fantasy league. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts and also on the YouTubes. So that's it from me, and that's it from Jess today. In the meantime, you can find me on Twitter at Right Said Sarah, Locked on Kings at Locked on LA Kings, wherever you get your podcasts. Jess, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. You can find Locked On Flames wherever you listen to this podcast, as well as YouTube.
All right. Well, Jess, a pleasure as always making fun of Vegas with you. And we'll be back next week, Jess and I, and make sure you keep listening to Locked On NHL every day of the week here on Locked On NHL, Locked On, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.